that being said, let's get started. So Reese's, chocolate, how many of us like that? Yeah, quite a few. What emotion would you associate with consuming this treat? Emerson?
Happy.
Yeah, I would say probably happiness, satisfaction, all things good, right? Well, what about failing a test?
Oh.
Not as exciting, obviously. Maybe fear, anger, a little bit of anxiety, probably associated with failing a test. Now lastly, I present you a Norwegian albino strand rat. And probably all of us in the crowd, except maybe Ryan because of his snakes, would be very fearful if we saw this happening in our classroom running around. So classical conditioning, that's the overarching theme of learning through associations, and that's what we'll be talking to you about today. So I'm going to start with saying the background of classical conditioning, and then I'm going to go into using the principles of classical conditioning in laboratory settings, and then I'm going to conclude with giving you a real application of how you can use classical conditioning in your lives. So the background. Rita, Ibrahim, and their colleagues in their research published in the National Library of Medicine states that classical conditioning is done when two stimuli are linked together to produce a new learned response. And this can occur in both animals and in people. So that's what happens, and overall it's learning through associations. So different emotions and different things can be associated with ideas. And we really learn that largely unconsciously, which means we don't have to actively tell ourselves, like, oh, we associate happiness with chocolate. It happens without our conscious awareness, and it's really powerful in the learning sphere. It was discovered by Ivan Pavlov in the 1890s, and he was actually a Russian physiologist. So he's by no means a psychologist or a neuroscientist. He founded classical conditioning by accident. This is how our whole thing started. Now, how do we use classical conditioning in the laboratory setting? And that is kind of what I'm an expert at. I spent a whole semester training rats in my neuroscience lab through classical conditioning principles. And it was such a great experience to really see this in real life. So this is in the BSB at Baylor, and this is the rat colony that we call it. So the two principles of classical conditioning that I'm going to focus on today is shaping and reinforcement. And there's so many different principles associated with classical conditioning, but these are the two most important for training rats. So this is my rat Stuart, and how I train him is that I put in this Skinner box, which is an operated conditioning chamber, and I use shaping and positive reinforcement, which was sugar water. He likes sugar water. So anytime that he did something or performed a behavior that I liked and I wanted him to do, I would reinforce him with some sugar water. So he learned to associate doing the performances and behaviors that Sarian wanted, I would give sugar water. So over a semester, I taught him how to press a lever, how to walk a tightrope, even how to jump through a hoop, all through using shaping and reinforcement through classical conditioning. So this is going to be his final production, and you can see through this that he immediately goes for the reward. Right after he does his behavior, jumping through the hoop, he immediately goes to get his water. So he associates largely and very quickly that anything that he does good that we've trained to do through shaping, he's going to get reinforced through that. So that's kind of how classical conditioning works in a laboratory setting. Now, how many of us are actually going to be training rats? Not that many, I suppose, but this is so prevalent in our lives because many of our behaviors, including health behaviors, social behaviors, even relational behaviors, can be trained through classical conditioning. You can train yourself and you can train others if you so please. So, who is familiar with Waco's finest establishment? Yes. Scrubs, of course, a fan favorite. But this can actually be extremely problematic for college students because just the mere presence of seeing Scrubs can actually induce you to have cravings of alcohol because we associate alcohol consumption with this location, which is an environmental stimuli. So this can be really problematic. It can really interfere with our learning in the classroom setting. So to change this, we can actually use classical conditioning to help create pro-social behavior. And if you go to scrubs every weekend and drink heavily, then you're obviously going to associate scrubs with alcohol and have these cravings and withdrawal symptoms just by the mere sight of seeing this location. However, if you continue to go without having any alcohol consumed, so you go just have a good time, go dance, do whatever your heart pleases with no alcohol consumption, that association actually gets smaller. So we can train ourselves to be more pro-social, and we can train ourselves to do different behaviors that we want to using these classical conditioning principles. So I urge all of y'all to really think about how important behavior is in our everyday lives and how it can actually be trained in ourselves and through others, for good and for bad, but focus on the good.